Hello. Welcome to my channel Touching Stories. You're about to hear an amazing story about love and unexpected decisions. Enjoy watching. One of Selina's strengths was determination. A rural girl who grew up in a large family, almost from early childhood, learned. Buns do not grow on trees, and a person's life will be as he creates it. Unless, of course, the man was not born with a golden spoon in his mouth. The girl realized that all the benefits of the earth no one will bring her on a platter. Besides Selina, there were 3 other children in the family, which means that she would have to sweat. Well, she was ready, and school for her was the first step to success, which Selina will certainly achieve. It couldn't be otherwise. After all, she had a dream, and Selina was also very beautiful. The girl drew attention to herself, gorgeous brown curls, which she arranged in a high hairstyle, huge greenish blue eyes, framed by long, thick eyelashes, and a beautiful pattern of lips. She'd drive so many boys crazy, shook his head at his alcoholic neighbor. Frank, a man of indeterminate age. Oh, I wish I was younger. Frank, go to bed. Sarah, the girl's mother, said one day. Don't talk nonsense. How could it be nonsense? Neighbor laughed. It's the truth. Selina herself was calm about her beauty. When she, a 16-year-old girl, was told about future success from the outside, Selina laughed. Everything can be. Only first it would be good to get an education and then already think about love. The Walker family was one of the wealthiest in town. Mickey and Amanda had a successful family business, a chain of hotels and 2 restaurants. Their only son Mark grew up in love and prosperity. Boy never knew any rejection. All his wants were fulfilled at the snap of fingers, and as a consequence Mark grew up spoiled. The boy grew up spoiled. The boy grew up, did well in sports, was handsome and the soul of the company. Girls hung on mock bunches of girls, and the grown-up offspring of the Walker couple did not know what a refusal from the opposite sex. Walker will persuade anyone. With respect and envy, said friends, and Mark shrugged his shoulders modestly. From the outside, it seemed that this handsome brunette with searing brown eyes does not give importance to his attractiveness or success with girls. That was true, but Mark had never boasted about it. But he did. No wonder. Mark was a long-awaited child, born when Amanda was desperate to be a mother after 3 years of marriage. So Mark was forgiven for everything from painted wallpaper to a broken, expensive floor vase. So universal admiration was his element. It must be said Mark Walker was not devoid of romanticism. He knew how to court beautifully, knew a lot about girls, and in addition was able to find merits in any pretty girl. When Mark studied in the first year of university, there were rumors that he had an affair with a married secretary of the dean. Whether it was in fact, the story was silent. Mark preferred to keep all his numerous affairs a secret, and this could not but add to his score. Student weddings were not uncommon. Divine Mickey, just divine. Mickey looked at his mother carefully and noted that she looked even better. Elizabeth had recently buried her husband and seemed to have aged 10 years. Even the plants smelled different there, the old woman continued enthusiastically. You can really smell the aroma. Not like here, everything is somehow inanimate. And the smell of cut grass is something unreal. While I was living in the city, I had already forgotten what it is. I think I know what to give her on her anniversary, thought the general director of the hotel chain with a smile. And 3 months later, on her 65th birthday, Elizaveta received the keys to a rural house. The house is already furnished and equipped with all the necessary communications, so Mom, own it, said Mickey with a smile, kissing the Jubilee on the cheek. I hope you'll invite us over for New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve? Yes, yes, of course, my dears, replied the old woman with a smile, and tears glistened in her eyes. Thank you very much. You haven't seen the house yet, Mark exclaimed. It's like a real little house from a fairy tale. Really, Mom? Look at the photo, suggested the son, taking out his smartphone. What a beauty, aghast Elizabeth, looking at the photo of the future property in different angles. Indeed, a Terek. So, we will celebrate the new year in a little house. It only remains to decide who is a mouse and who is a frog, and who is a frog, and who is a frog, and who is a quack, summed up the grandson, and everyone laughed. Let someone not crush our little house, Mickey said cheerfully. Let him try, exclaimed Mark. The jubilee with the family went on as usual. Elizabeth was already mentally living in the village. The old woman imagined what she would plant in the garden, and there would definitely be a lot of flowers. In early summer, her yard will be fragrant with the aromas of lilacs and irises. And she will plant roses, violets, lilies, peonies, cosmos, rudbeckia, in general, many, many different flowers. And no newfangled landscape design, only a lawn with thick, soft grass, on which it was so pleasant to sit. Dreaming old fool, she reproached herself cheerfully. Don't say "gop" before you jump, Elizabeth. Well, you've always been a rational person, an intelligent woman after all. But no exhortation helped. And why should they? After all, the old woman knew that everything would be exactly as she imagined. Unlike many people of her age, Elizabeth was not afraid of change. There was a little more than a month left until the new year, which means that it is worth hurrying with the move. After all, it was necessary to prepare for the first family celebration in the new house. Elizabeth! She heard and, waking up from her reverie, realized that they had been trying to call her for a long time without success. Ah, she answered the culprit of the celebration. Thank God, Amanda laughed. And we thought you were somewhere else in the world. No, no, my dears, smiled her mother-in-law. I am here with you. When Selina went to the last grade, the school conducted a questionnaire for career guidance. To the question, what do you dream of? Selina answered without hesitation that she wanted to open her own restaurant. The next day, Maria, the class teacher, said in front of all the people, I didn't expect this from anyone but from you, Selina. What's the matter? Selina asked, perplexed, wondering what she could have done. When asked about your dream, you said that you wanted to open a restaurant, right? Well, yes, she confirmed. You've always seemed like a reasonable person to me, and suddenly a restaurant? What's wrong with dreaming of having your own restaurant? Selina smiled involuntarily, completely confused. Well, at least that any dream should come from real possibilities, said the class teacher. However, the student was not confused at all. Maria, let me disagree with you. Selina smiled again. A dream is a dream, and it comes, first of all, from the wishes of a person, and its capabilities are another thing. But I think that if a person wants something very much, he will definitely achieve it, because a dream is stimulus. There was silence in the class. Classmates listened to Selina with respect, realizing that they would not have been able to respond as worthily to this ranting loser. She wanted to humiliate a girl from a large and far from wealthy family, but she attacked the wrong one. Perhaps the loser would have thought of an argument to get even. But then the bell rang, and the 11th graders immediately jumped up from their seats. You got her good, her friend Ginny said approvingly to Selina. You know, I actually feel sorry for her, she sighed. Well, what does she have? No family, no kids, and not a young age. And here we are with our ambitious dreams. But we have our whole life ahead of us, and she has... But it's not your fault, she said. That's true too, Selina nodded, but it doesn't change anything. Oh, Selina, Ginny laughed. Are you sure you want to open a restaurant? You should study psychology. I'll think about it, Selina laughed. But right now my dream is a restaurant, and you're going to be the manager. You got it. I'll take your word for it. That's right, Selina wagged a finger. So to the Food Institute. Selina, as befits a child from a large family, learned to cook as a first grader. Her parents worked, then took Evan and Veronica out of kindergarten, so dinner for the whole family was Selina's responsibility. And closer to the 5th grade, she realized that she really liked cooking. Even then, Selina knew for sure that her profession would be connected with cooking. Dreams about the profession of a chef were replaced by dreams of a chef, were replaced by dreams of a career as a chef in some cool restaurant. And so, by her senior year, she decided that she would own a nice, cozy restaurant with a fountain in the center of the room and live music. Selina knew it wouldn't be easy. Well, so she was not looking for easy ways. After the New Year holidays, Selina found out the conditions of admission to the Regional Institute of Food Industry, enrolled in preparatory courses, and now very much studied. She rejected invitations to discos without any regret. And on birthdays, if she came, then not for a long time. Selina purposefully went to her dream, and entertainment will not run away. After celebrating New Year's Eve with her parents, sister Veronica, brothers Ethan and Evan, Selina went to visit her classmate Candy. The whole class was gathered. She was touching up her lipstick when there was a knock on the door. Ginny stood on the doorstep, dressed in a shiny blue dress. On her friend's head was a headband with horns decorated with tinsel. "Happy New Year! Happy New Year!" The girl cheerfully congratulated Selina's family. "Happy New Year, Ginny," Sarah smiled. "My goodness, it's not cold in such thin tights." "Nope." The girl shook her head. "Maybe you'll have some champagne?" "With pleasure, Aunt Sarah." "Help yourself, have some chicken, cold cake with horseradish," offered the landlady. "Selina, bring me a clean plate." "Oh, no." Ginny waved her hands in feigned horror. "I'm already full." "No offense. You know at other times I would have loved to eat your cold cock." "I know," laughed Sarah, pouring her daughter's friend some cold champagne. "How are you doing?" "I'm doing just fine," the girl replied. "I'm studying to be a secretary, preparing to become a manager in a restaurant." "Great program," approved the woman. "Mom, can we take some food with us?" Selina asked. "Of course we can. I've always been jealous of you," Ginny admitted, as the girls left the house and headed for a classmate who lived on the next street. "Why is that?" asked Selina with a chuckle. "You have such a big and friendly family. And as long as I remember you, there were no serious conflicts in your family, and in general." "Well, not really," she said, proud of her family in her heart. "Well, at least I don't remember that." Ginny smiled. "I don't think anyone in your family is capable of swearing." That's true. Conflict and confrontation were not in Selina's family. There was love, mutual respect, and gratitude for each other. What is resentment, anger, frustration, and other negative emotions? None of Selina did not remember. "Well, it's probably more obvious from the outside," Selina replied evasively. "Oh, did the Kurakins acquire a jeep or what?" The girls passed by a beautiful wooden house with unusual carved shutters. "Just like in a fairy tale. You have fallen behind the life in your province," grinned her friend. "The Kurakins moved to the city. Now there is an intelligent and very nice old woman living here. And the jeep is probably a relative's. Listen, there was a boy who came here. He's so cute. He's so... Man, I can't even find the words. Not like our penthouse boys." "You say pentads too?" Selina laughed. "As if we don't have nice, good-looking guys here." "There are," Ginny nodded. "And good ones, and good-looking ones. But not eagles. And this guy has such a cool sports car. Lucky for the one he's driving." "How picky you are," Selina exclaimed. "But it's not the cars that make you happy. You can't even dream anymore." She suddenly remembered the conversation with the class teacher about the dream. She asked how she was doing. "Everything is the same." "She should be nicer to people, and everything would change," Ginny said. And Selina couldn't agree more. As they talked, they reached Candy's house. Parents of the classmates celebrated New Year's Eve at their relative's house, and the house was at the full disposal of the young people. The house was playing loud music, and the table was bursting with treats which were left by Luba's ancestors, and even the guests brought them after the party. It was unanimously decided to go to the club, where the villagers were waiting for the New Year's program and disco until the morning. Selina had no idea that this New Year's holiday would become for her a kind of epilogue to her love story. "Well, what am I going to do there in this village?" whined Mark, when his father announced his decision to go to Elizabeth for New Year's Eve. "Maybe I'll stay in town and hang out with my friends." "You'll definitely hang out," Mickey nodded. "The holidays are long, but we promised Grandma we'd come for New Year's Eve." Mark grinned, remembering how his father had practically begged his grandmother for a New Year's Eve invitation, but hadn't said anything. Grandma was sacred, and New Year's Eve in a rural setting. Well, there was something to it. A little variety wouldn't hurt, except Victoria. "What's the problem?" Mickey was surprised when his son voiced the problem. "You could invite her along. If she agrees, of course. And if she doesn't?" Mark asked reasonably. "Then you should ask first." To Mark's great surprise, Victoria agreed. "And indeed," she said, "what's wrong with these clubs? What haven't we seen there? You really don't mind, do you?" "Well, why should I mind?" the girl asked with a grin. "I think it's going to be an exciting New Year's Eve." The walkers picked up Victoria, and Mark called her. "Come up to my place," they asked. "What's that for?" Mark was surprised. "What do you mean, why?" "I have 3 suitcases." "Victoria, what suitcases?" he asked, barely containing his laughter. "We're only going for 3 days." "What's the matter?" Amanda asked. "Victoria asked me to come up and help her carry suitcases." "Oh, gods," her mother moaned, and it was easy to see from her look that she was not happy about something. "Amanda, be lenient," Mickey smiled, catching her mood. "The girl wants to impress our son. I think it's quite normal." "And us too," Amanda nodded. "That too. Come on, honey, don't frown. It doesn't suit you." The young man walked out of the entryway. Mark had a suitcase in each of their hands, and Victoria was rolling a third. Amanda shook her head, and Mickey only hummed cheerfully. "So, shall we hit the road?" he asked cheerfully. Everyone nodded. "The air really is fantastic," Amanda exclaimed as they got out of the car. "I can't argue with that," said her husband. "It smells like watermelon." Elizabeth came out to meet them, and everyone gasped. "Grandma, you are getting younger before your eyes," Mark said approvingly. "Tell me, what's the secret?" "What secret is there?" She waved her hand. "Fresh air, that's the secret. Well, and I do not sit idly by." Elizabeth circled the yard and boasted, "See how the yard is cleaned. I did it all myself." "Come on." "My son didn't believe me." "So much for okay," the woman laughed. "Well, enough of this nonsense. Let's go inside." The house was warm, cozy, and perfectly clean. "Wow," respectfully stretched daughter-in-law. "And I took household chemicals with me, wipes for cleaning. I thought we would generalize. I'm telling you that I do not sit idly by. So, dear guests, make yourself comfortable. Have a rest." Victoria sighed with relief. Generalize. Preparations for New Year's Eve were in full swing. Elizabeth was busy with pie and goose and apples. Amanda was busy chopping salad preparations. The men were busy too. Mickey was melting the sauna, and Mark was putting kebabs on skewers. Only Victoria took no part in the New Year's Eve hustle and bustle. When Elizabeth asked if she could chop up a chicken fillet for the pie, the girl complained about her new rhinestone nail coating. "What if the rhinestones get in the filling?" Victoria complained. The landlady just shrugged her shoulders. When Victoria, dressed after the bath in a very seductive translucent robe, was applying the mask, Amanda whispered to her son, "I'm wildly apologizing, but could your girlfriend dress more modestly?" "Mom, what are you doing?" Mark asked in surprise. "Actually, It's not proper to parade around in such frivolous clothes while being a guest, the mother said unhappily. All right, I'll tell her about it now, obediently replied the boy, who did not want a conflict, especially on such a day. Viculia, can I talk to you? With a gentle smile, he called the girl. Yes, doll, Victoria smiled back. Come, let's go and see the bedroom where we will sleep. It sounded a little ambiguous, but he had to get Victoria away somehow to talk in private. Did my robe have that effect on you? She coquettishly cooed, wrapping her arms around Mark's neck. You guessed it, he said awkwardly, gently opening his arms. But, it's not customary for us to walk around the house in such, things, would you mind? Covering up? Cover up, the girl frowned. You don't like my robe. I wore it for you, by the way. And if you're not able to appreciate, Bickle, calm down. Calm down, Mark, beloved. I really like your robe, but here, as you noticed, my parents and grandmother. Well, indecent, I see. The girl's lips trembled. Do I look bad? Mark almost groaned. Well, is there really some common sense in anecdotes about blondes? How else to explain that Victoria didn't understand such obvious things? You look beautiful, gently looking at the girl, the guy replied, and then it hit him. But now I want you to wear something. Closed. For me, I want to look at you and wonder what's under that modest outfit. It's such a game, isn't it? Victoria whispered languidly, pressing herself against her lover. Her intentions left no doubt, and at another time Mark would have taken advantage. But it was New Year's Eve, for crying out loud. Honey, you promised me a change of clothes, Mark reminded her with feigned severity. Okay, sweetie, whatever you say, Victoria smiled and added, I like it when you're so strict. Well, you see, you and I are a perfect couple. He summarized, once again proud of his resourcefulness and ability to find an approach to a lady under any circumstances. I think so too, she replied and opened the closet, where she had already hung all her clothes. Having examined the outfits, Victoria took out a short terry robe of dark blue color. The hood of the robe had funny little white ears on it. Will this fit, she asked with a smile. Quite, Mark said yes. We'll wait for you in the kitchen. What's that for? There's something for it. To cut sausages, cheese, bojinka, fruit, butter, and caviar on a loaf. That's all, the boy answered, and left the bedroom. Victoria appeared in the kitchen about 15 minutes later. Girl, help me cut the apples, Elizabeth asked. This time Victoria did not refuse, for which she was rewarded. When all the hot dishes and appetizers were placed on plates, Mickey came into the kitchen. He had just come from the bath and offered to have a small drink. The offer was well received, and Amanda opened the refrigerator. Wine, liqueur, brandy, she asked the crowd. Or maybe someone would like a vodka. Can I have a vodka? Victoria exclaimed. That's our way, Mickey said approvingly. Amanda, I'll have a vodka too. Elizabeth preferred wine. Amanda preferred liquor, and Mark decided to support his father and his girlfriend. It was just over 2 hours until New Year's Eve, and the women, gasping, ran to get dressed up. Father and son stayed in the kitchen to have another drink. Victoria was dressed in a dark red floor, length dress with a thigh-length slit and an open back. She put her platinum hair in a high, intricate hairstyle, and makeup in nude colors favorably emphasized the freshness of the skin. The girl looked very attractive, which Mark did not fail to tell her. Thank you, sweetie. Victoria smiled coquettishly. You're good, too. You look very stylish. The blue-colored club jacket suited Mark. And in combination with the new jeans, he was, as his friend Nicola would say, just fire. The rest of the family looked equally elegant. Mark once again noted what a handsome couple his parents were. Amanda's slim figure was beautifully cut in a black evening dress, and Mickey in a noble gray jacket looked like a real successful businessman, which in fact he was. Grandmother, in a pretty knit dress of soft blue, was also looking good. I wish we were all on the cover of a magazine, Mark thought, where they talk about the lives of stars or famous businessmen. After the chime struck and the president's congratulatory speech, Victoria began to actively nalachek on vodka and cognac. We can't say that Mark liked it, but he discounted the fact that it was New Year's Eve. And an hour and a half later, the girl wanted to dance. "Do you have music?" she asked Elizabeth. "What about it?" The old woman smiled. "Here's a TV. There are enough channels. I don't know what kind of music you like, but I think you'll find something." The girl began to change channel after channel, and when she finally found the right music, she set the volume to the highest setting and began to wriggle in some unthinkable dance. Frankly speaking, Mark caught himself thinking that he was uncomfortable for his girlfriend. Of course, they had been to the clubs many times, and Victoria was rocking out to the fullest. But, as it turned out, what is beautiful on the dance floor of a nightclub, completely inappropriate in a cozy country house? "Mark, you should go to the club," Grandma suggested. "There's a New Year's program and disco there tonight." "Why?" he thought. "That's an option too. Grandma wants to communicate with her parents, and under such loud music it is unrealistic. Besides, it was interesting for the guy to visit the village disco. His friend Nicolas had traveled to his grandmother's village many times and assured that there are often fights there." "What do they fight about?" Mark asked then. "I don't think they care what they fight about," Slava grinned. "They fight about territory or about girls or about their little sister. They find something to fight about. And the most interesting thing is that 5 minutes after the fight, everyone loves and respects each other again. I think it's entertaining," Mark thought. At least he thought so when he was drunk. He walked resolutely over to Victoria, put his arm around her waist, and shouted through the music, "I have a proposition for you." "What?" she shouted. Mark took the remote control and, turning the music down, said, "Let's go to the disco." "Are there any discos here?" Victoria asked in surprise. "Girl," smiled Elizaveta, "we have a village here, not a remote taiga. I, because of my age, did not have a chance to visit a disco, but I think it is not much different from your city clubs. Doesn't it matter where you kick your feet?" The argument seemed weighty to the girl, and she nodded favorably. "I need to change," Victoria said, and ran off to the bedroom. When she returned, she was wearing a short silver dress, a mink coat to match, and black suede boots. Her hair was loose. "How did you like me?" Victoria turned to Mark. "As always, great," he said sincerely. And for the sake of persuasiveness, he stuck out his thumb, and the young people departed. "Where are my 20 years?" commented Mickey, pouring a brandy. "Who's the girl?" Elizabeth asked. "From the university?" She shrugged her shoulders. "Honestly, I didn't know. He has a lot of girls like that, but this one is hooked on Mark. She's beautiful, of course. Spectacular, but she's got no brains." "Oh, come on, Amanda," her mother-in-law grinned. "She's at an age when you can afford the luxury of not having a brain. If you don't have brains at 30, you're in trouble." Spouses laughed loudly, and the family continued. Victoria remarked as they approached the club, which was decorated with many garlands. There were garlands on the trees that grew nearby. "I guess so," Mark agreed. When they entered the club, a man and a woman dressed in national costumes invited them to sing a song or tell a poem. "Fly landed on the jam." "That's the whole poem." Mark recited it and theatrically waved his hands. The woman looked expectantly at Victoria, and the latter, reluctantly at first, began to sing Roxette's song, which had become the soundtrack of the movie Pretty Woman. The girl's voice sounded stronger and more confident, and Mark was proud to notice how people were coming to them. Victoria liked to sing in English, which she mastered perfectly, so she had no equal in karaoke bars. When Victoria finished singing, the tipsy villagers applauded. A man in a suit handed the girl a chocolate bar and a bottle of champagne, after which she and Mark went to the dance hall. Victoria gave a victory cry and, running into the center of the dance floor, continued dancing. Mark didn't feel like dancing. He propped himself against the wall and from time to time supported his beloved with encouraging looks and gestures. Indeed, Mark thought, remembering the words of his beloved grandmother, what difference does it make where you kick your feet? Selina, Ginny, Candy, and the rest of the class entered the hall. Who the hell is this bimbo? Candy exclaimed in amazement when she saw a blonde girl in a silver dress and boots dancing. Ginny, on the other hand, realized it as soon as she saw the prince of her dreams standing alone against the wall. The boy was looking at her with admiring glances and gestures. Selina nudged her in the side by Ginny. There he is, that guy I told you about. What do you think of him? I think he's great, huh? Selina looked at the guy and immediately averted her eyes. A guy's just a guy, she shrugged. Typical Major, Selina thought. No, the guy's certainly cute. Candy, you have to tell me, Ginny said pleadingly. But before Candy could answer, the dancing girl shrieked, I love you all. Happy New Year. Oh, yeah. And then their classmate Tom, the first dancer in the village, jumped into the middle of the room and started making incredible moves. The guy extended his hand to the blonde, inviting her to dance, and something began. Tom twisted and spun the girl, bending her almost to the floor, and she obeyed. Some supported the couple with applause in time with the music. Others laughed furtively. Others danced in the background, not daring to go out to the dances. Mark quietly watched his lady dancing with a strange guy, but strangely enough did not feel jealousy. Everything was possible on New Year's Eve. Mark admired Victoria dancing, noting once again how gracefully she moved and how finely she felt the music. And then he saw her. In the middle of a solo dance, a group of young people entered the hall, and the first person who caught Mark's eye was a dark-haired girl with stunning huge eyes, which in the light of the New Year's lights seemed simply witch. She looked like a witch, honestly. No, to hell with mythology. At the sight of this beauty, Mark was reminded of Turgenev's young ladies. Perhaps it was the old-fashioned dress with ruffles, which, by the way, did not spoil her at all, but on the contrary made the girl more feminine. Probably this is a carefully thought out New Year's image, Mark decided. It's a great look, man. I should give Victoria a hint to get something like that. It's pretty cool, huh? Oh yeah, Victoria. While admiring the strange girl, Mark forgot he was here with Victoria. In fact, Victoria seemed too ordinary to him now. This girl, on the other hand, her beauty was natural. What are her years? The efforts of a determined girl were more than rewarded. After learning that she became a student at the Institute of Food Industry, Selina felt like the happiest person in the world. She had done it. And it was the second step towards her dream. Of course, there were 5 whole years of studying to be done. So what? So what? So what if it's 5 years? If you study and don't be lazy, they'll fly by. The session is the hottest time for a student. But Selina, having received 4 automatic, reduced her employment to a minimum, which allowed her to celebrate the new year not in the dormitory, but at home, in the circle of a large and friendly family. It was very convenient. After all, in the coming year, her older brother Ethan, with whom they were yearlings, fell under the spring draft. So it was God's will that they should come home for New Year's Eve. But Mark had long ago decided for himself that he would first get an education, work for 3 years, and only then think about starting a family. Elizabeth longed for rural life. She was born in the village, but when she got married, she moved to the city. After graduating from the Pedagogical Institute, Elizabeth got a job as a methodologist in an orphanage where she worked until her retirement. And when she retired, she realized that she was drawn to the village. It all started with an invitation from an old friend, Veronica, who lived in the village. Her friend had a large vegetable garden a well-kept garden, and a household. Elizabeth visited her friend for a month, and she terribly did not want to leave. When her son asked her how she had rested, the old woman exclaimed, "Without any tuning, which modern girls can't live without," and even assured that these lips, eyelashes, and hair are nothing but a natural gift. Well, for example, Victoria at the very beginning of acquaintance assured Mark that she naturally has such seductive, plump lips. Alas, Victoria's sensual lips turned out to be the result of the excellent work of a beautician. And they looked quite natural. However, for Mark it was that lady's flaw, which is easy to forgive. After all, it's all done for us, the stronger sex, so let's be more lenient, gentlemen, he told the guys when they were relaxing in the sauna talking about girls. I think that's when Mark shared the secrets of his success. But this girl is a ripe berry, a nymph. Looks like I'll be coming here often now, grinned Mark to himself. And Victoria, whispered an inner voice. What about Victoria? He objected. I promised her nothing. And then he was not sure of Victoria's sincere love. The dance ended, and the hall burst into applause. Don't go, proclaimed the woman in the national costume who stood at the entrance. She handed both dancers a bottle of champagne. I suggest we all drink to that, shouted Tom. What do you think about it, beautiful stranger? I'm all for it, assured Victoria, looking around for Mark. He appeared beside her and, putting his arm around her, asked, You haven't forgotten about me? She kissed Mark's lips defiantly. You didn't forget about me. Your girl hasn't forgotten you. Tom, not without envy, looked at the couple, and Victoria asked him, Well, cowboy, does the invitation still stand? Of course it's still on, assured the boy. The young people, taking Mark and Victoria with them, went outside. In 5 minutes they were laughing and talking about nothing. The liquor was flowing. Why don't you come with us? Some guy clapped Mark on the shoulder. Why stand out in the cold? We can, he answered nonchalantly, noting with satisfaction that there was no fight in sight. Victoria was also in favor. All the way she hung on Mark's arm and chattered away, and he had no choice but to endure heroically. The girl continued her chatter, and Mark looked around furtively for a stranger of unearthly beauty. Maybe he had imagined her. What kind of drunken nonsense is this? He was angry with himself, and looking around, he saw the one he was looking for. The girl was walking along with two friends and smiled serenely, unaware of the passions she had generated in the soul of the Major. Victoria was on a roll. She was dancing again, and between dances she was drinking champagne and educating the local girls about beauty and fashion. Ginny took a moment to ask Mark to dance. Victoria frowned, but decided to dance with Tom. I hope it's just as cool here, she said in a slurred voice. Selina looked at Svetka and grinned. She's got a freebie eye. When the dance was over, Victoria sat down at the table and commanded to who knows who. Off, sunt, a bottle of champagne. One of the guys obligingly placed the required bottle in front of her. Thank you, she hiccuped. Now the girl seriously thought she was in a bar. After drinking the champagne, Victoria dropped her head on the table and fell asleep. When Mark saw his girlfriend sleeping at the table, he almost spat in frustration. Unfortunately, it wasn't the first time this had happened, but getting drunk like a pig in unfamiliar company was too much. He looked furtively at the beautiful girl, whom he recognized as Selina. In the girl's hands was a glass of champagne, the contents of which Mark noted had hardly diminished. Apparently, unlike Victoria, she was indifferent to alcohol. Guys, I'm sorry, the guy said in an embarrassed tone. Victoria just, overdid it. Come on. One of the guys waved his hand. I think his name was Stephen. Who wouldn't be? Yeah, Mark muttered, and without thinking he picked Victoria up and carried her. It wasn't too far to walk. When Mark and his burden crossed the threshold of his grandmother's house, he was relieved to find that everyone was already asleep. Pulling Victoria's boots and dress off, Mark lay down beside her and fell asleep instantly. However, before disappearing into the arms of Morpheus, the guy suddenly saw an unrealistically beautiful face framed by dark curls. The greenish-blue eyes looked serious, but he noticed a slight chuckle. "Selina, you're a heartbreaker," Ginny exclaimed when the girls met at her place the next day. "What are you talking about?" Selina didn't understand. "That. Don't tell me you didn't notice how that big boy was eyeing you." "You'll laugh, but I really didn't notice anything," she said, a little confused. "You didn't make it up?" "Well, in theory, I could have imagined it," Ginny nodded. "But when we were dancing with him, he was asking about you." "So congratulations, my friend. You caught a big fish." "I didn't catch anything," Selina objected. "Did you see the girl he was with? Her boots alone are my annual scholarship." "So what?" her friend snorted. "Boots are not a matter of time, but a beauty like yours is a gift from God. What does she have? Just tuning. And she drinks like a horse. Drunk or not drunk, with or without tuning, it's probably already decided for several years. His parents probably have it all laid out step by step, when to get married, when to have kids and how many. But he really looked at you and asked you questions." "Looked, questioned," Selina grinned. "So what of it? The guy is good-looking, knows his worth, and is hardly content with one single girl. But he's not about our honor, unless it's for fun. I don't want that for nothing." "Maybe not," Ginny nodded disappointedly. "Hey, what are you doing?" Selina laughed. "Ginny, I assure you there's nothing to worry about. Do you know how many of them I saw at the Institute? A car and a small cart. I assure you they have girls for serious relationships like us." "Well and all right," cheerfully waved her friend's hand. "When you have your own restaurant, we will choose our own suitors. And the best. By the way, how are things going with the upcoming opening of the restaurant?" Ginny asked with feigned strictness. "It's going great. God willing, I'll get another machine. And I'll be there." Selina winked. "Shall we go out?" "We will when I close the session," she said seriously. Ginny could only envy her best friend's determination. "How was the party?" Elizabeth asked. "It was great," exclaimed a pale but cheerful Victoria, and Mark gave her an angry look. "Maybe some champagne," she continued, ignoring her boyfriend's disgruntled face. "That's not a bad idea," Mickey said, and winked at her and added, "With last night's kebab, eh?" After a late breakfast, or rather an afternoon meal with champagne, Mark fell asleep again. The languid Victoria also expressed a desire to take a nap. In the evening and the next day, the young people walked around the village, breathed the country air with pleasure, and could not get enough of it. Mark secretly hoped to meet a beautiful woman with witch's eyes, but alas, January 3, the family walker, was going to leave for the city. "Wow, we're out of bread," Elizabeth said, surprised or saddened. "What's the problem?" Mickey wondered. "I'll go to the store." "No, Dad," said Mark. "I'll go myself, afoot. I feel like going for a walk and getting some air before I leave." Victoria was sitting there doing her makeup. Besides, she had to pack her suitcases, so she didn't have time to accompany Mark. Good. What the hell? What if Mark was a couple of meters away from the store when the heroine of his dreams came out of it? Shit! What's her name? He thought frantically, and with excitement he couldn't remember. As luck would have it, nothing clever came to mind, so Mark rattled on. "Hello, nymph." "Hello," the girl replied in an even voice. "May I come in?" "Oh, yes, of course," Mark muttered and stepped aside to let her pass. So much for the conversation, he thought, with annoyance, and almost howled at his own stupidity. There was nothing to do. He had to go to the store. When Mark returned, Victoria was already in full dress. She was wearing a burgundy down jacket with a rich collar and black slim pants. The girl's hair was tucked under a stylish Chalma cap. And that would be all right, Mark thought with slight irritation. But how could I delicately hint to Victoria that platinum hair and dark maroon lipstick were not the best combination in the world? Remembering what he'd said to the guys in the sauna, Mark tried to keep his irritation at bay. It worked, I should say. But unfortunately, not for long. Why am I picking on you? He asked himself. The answer came by itself. But what to do with it? The meeting at the store amused Selina. She probably wouldn't tell anyone about it. Not even Ginny. I'd even say her last, the girl thought with a slight chuckle. She'll just start fantasizing again. So I'll keep quiet like a partisan. On this warm and snowy January morning, Selina ran to the store for groceries. The ticket for the evening flight to the regional center had already been taken. Now was a matter of provisions for a week. Who would have thought that this major would condescend to their village store? Why did I start to snicker? The girl said to herself. Maybe the grandmother had run out of bread, salt, or matches, and he didn't seem like a bad guy. Not like his swaggering girl. What's my business, though? 6 months later, in pursuit of her dream, Selina enrolled in a business elective. Chronic fatigue became a constant companion of the girl. For 6 months, Selina managed to go home only 4 times. However, she did not think to be discouraged, much less give up. A couple of times she was visited by Ginny, who studied in the district center. That's what I mean. A city, a friend exclaimed enthusiastically. Tell me, where can you get a great... Where do you go on vacation? Yes, and I do not really see the city, Selina admitted. Study and electives are all my entertainment. Ginny shook her head. Don't you get any rest at all? Not that I don't, but I don't have enough time. Well, I'll rest during the summer vacation. No, stretched a friend. We have not seen you how long? So the question of where to have a good time is still open, but I really don't know, Selina said. The only place I know is a restaurant near the city park where we celebrated the end of the winter session. Not counting, of course, cafes and eateries. Now you say you don't know anything. Let's go to that restaurant of yours. You're so quick. Selena laughed. You have to make a reservation in advance. So sorry, friend. The restaurant will be another time. Got it, Ginny nodded. Cafe then? Okay. Let it be the cafe. Selina realized that her friend was not so easy to get rid of and did not argue. She didn't really want to. And really, how much can one chew on the granite of science? That day, the girls had a great time at the cafe, and the next morning her friend left. Ginny never once mentioned the boy. Major, the grandson of the grandmother from the very beautiful house, which looked like a fairy harem, and Selina caught herself thinking that she felt a slight prick of disappointment. Just a slight prick, but still. It was the end of May, on the eve of the summer session. And then, having passed a few credits automatic, Selina once again bought herself a few days at home. And, oh, a miracle. She came home. Here is my village, here is my home. Joyfully thought the girl and realized that one more second and she will cry. Selina suddenly seized all-consuming love for her native land. And it was a very strong feeling. She decided not to tell her family about her arrival. Let it be a surprise. The time was approaching evening, so the whole family should be gathered. And so it was. Selina. Mom shook her hands. Sarah was hanging laundry in the yard. Husband, she called out to her husband, who was in the garage working on his car. Look who's here. Selina, exclaimed the father. Why didn't you call? I would have picked you up from the bus station. I wanted to surprise you, she smiled. Well, you succeeded, Sarah said. I just made dinner. Evan and Veronica will be back soon, and we'll sit down to dinner. But if you're really hungry, you can eat now. No, I'll wait. Where are they? I sent them to the store. Here they are, by the way. Hearing her brother and sister's voices, Selina smiled. God, how she missed them all. The younger ones rushed toward her sister, and Selina's nose pinched suspiciously. It seemed that seeing her family so infrequently had made her sentimental. Come on. Let's go to dinner," Sarah said with a smile, proud to see how attached her children were to each other. Back in high school, Selina had grown to love her morning walks. She liked to watch everything around her wake up and hear such familiar and ordinary but familiar sounds. She walked around the village, secretly hoping to meet a handsome major, but it seemed that he was not her. Why should she be surprised? He must be a student, and now the session. The day before leaving, the girl walked through the forest, then came to the river. At first she wanted to swim, but after touching the water, she changed her mind. It was very cold. It would be better to go to the river in the afternoon, when the water would warm up. Selina walked towards the village, inhaling the scents of grass and flowers with pleasure. Suddenly she noticed something colorful in the grass, and when the girl came closer, she froze with horror. In the grass lay an unfamiliar old woman in a colorful summer suit. Is she alive? Thought Selina, and overcoming her fear, touched the lying woman. Having made sure that the old woman was alive, the girl began to think how to help her. Having patted herself in the pockets of the sports suit, Selina was disappointed to find that she had left her cell phone at home. Even the ambulance cannot call, thought the girl in despair. But she had to get the poor thing to the village somehow. Fortunately, at a closer look at the woman of advanced age turned out to be slim, which greatly simplified the task. Only we are not talking about a bag of groceries, and the village, as Selina estimated, 1.5 kilometers. But there was nothing to do. When she started to lift the woman, she suddenly groaned and slowly opened her eyes. "Where am I?" she whispered. "Outside the village," Selina answered quietly. "Can you walk?" "I'll try," the old woman smiled weakly. "Good," the girl said with relief. "Now I'll take you under my arm and we'll waddle together somehow. Where do you live?" "Pine 3, murmured the poor woman. "That's the second street." "That's the little house," Selina realized. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Do you need medical attention?" No, the old woman assured her. "I'm going to lie down, take a pill, and you'll be fine." "Are you sure?" I'm sure. It's just that my blood pressure was high this morning, and I, the old fool, was carried away for a walk, and it's an early day." As they approached the house, the old lady said, "Sweetheart, be a friend. Take the key out of my pocket because something hands do not obey." Selina led the woman to the bed and helped her lie down. "What pills should I give you?" she asked. "Here, for blood pressure. They're on the table. And some water. What's your name, beautiful?" "My name is Selina," the girl replied. "Well, I'm Elizabeth. Let's get acquainted. I haven't seen you before. How long have you lived here?" "Since I was a child," Selina smiled. She liked the old woman very much. "It's just that I study at the regional institute and rarely come home," she explained. "And what kind of institute, if it's not a secret?" "Institute of Food Industry. I'm finishing my first year." "Great," nodded the old woman. "Would you like some tea?" "Oh, is it okay that I'm on a first-name basis?" "I'm fine." "Do you like studying?" asked the landlady at home. "Very much," Selina answered eagerly. "I always liked studying, even at school." "Good for you?" Elizabeth nodded with a smile. "It's good to like it. So how about some tea?" "No, thank you," her savior politely declined. "I need to go home to prepare for the session." "Well, it's the right thing to do. Come to my place tonight." "Well, except for a little while. I'm leaving early tomorrow morning. I have an exam the day after tomorrow." "What a problem." The older woman snorted, and Selina noted with satisfaction that she was feeling better. "Tonight my grandson will come to me. He'll take you with a breeze. He's from the region too, so there is no need to get up at dawn. Come on over. I'll bake a cake and introduce you to my grandson. By the way, he's finishing his 4th year. He's going to be an economist." "What a naughty boy." The girl smiled involuntarily. Naughty, a common word, but the old woman said it with such love, which seemed to be enough for 10 people. Come, eh? Elizabeth's voice had a note of pleading in it. Light, almost imperceptible, but still. She must be bored alone, especially in the evenings, came the thought. It seemed to be the kind of thing where having strangers in the house was an opportunity to feel that you weren't alone. Well, how can you say no to that? After that, and also, Duddy, thought Selina. A lonely old woman invited me to visit, so why not come? Now the girl realized that she was fooling herself. What boredom is there to talk about if her grandson is coming to Elizabeth today? Her thoughts were confused, her excitement growing and preventing her from giving a coherent answer. What's there to think about? Of course, Selina's coming. Just there to think about. Of course, Selina's coming. Because she likes this woman. What's this major got to do with it? She doesn't even remember his name. And just as Selina opened her mouth to reply, the old woman unknowingly gave her a powerful argument. Well, I have to thank you somehow. Come on. The girl smiled modestly. In my place, anyone would do so. We still have some kind-hearted people here. That's right, Elizabeth replied seriously. Not like in the city. Although even there, no, but meat. Well, God be with him. It doesn't change anything. You helped me, so I'll thank you. Okay, I'll be there for sure. What time? About 7 o'clock. Elizabeth, can I come with a friend? Selina asked, realizing that she would be uncomfortable without the support of her loyal Ginny. Of course you can. The old woman smiled, and the girl realized that her thinking was right. The old woman obviously wanted a real holiday and not an ordinary meeting with her grandson, for whom perhaps visits to his grandmother is nothing more than an obligation. Are you making conclusions out of nothing again? Chided Selina. Sometimes she thought back to that meeting at the store. Before her eyes stood the confused face of the major, however, his words, hello. Nymph crashed into memory even more firmly. Elizabeth looked after the girl and thought, that's the kind of girl I'd like to see as my grandson's wife. When she heard about Elizabeth's upcoming visit, Ginny was as excited as a little girl. Of course, I have nothing to look forward to, but at least I'll get to see how a great and bright love is born. Ginny what? Don't talk to me about social distinctions and all that crap. You didn't find yourself in a garbage dump either. You're beautiful, you're smart. You're beautiful, you're smart, you'll get a good education. Any man would be honored to court you. You don't know your worth. And what is my price? Selina asked with a grin. High, you bet. More expensive than that moral freak he was here with on New Year's Eve. Well, she doubted it. You don't understand anything. I wish I had your looks, Ginny said dreamily. But alas, so we'll work with what we have. Selina, don't be offended. You're a very, very beautiful girl, but you dress kind of old-fashioned. You should. Selina raised her hand in warning. I'm fine, she said. And besides, I'm not going on a date. But I just wanted to. What's best? Selina interrupted with a smile. I'm sure you do. But you know, Ginny, I don't think this guy's going to be surprised by fancy things. I mean, he's seen enough of it to last a lifetime. You think so? I know. After New Year's Eve, Mark went to his grandmother's house several times. He walked around the village often, and for a long time, hoping to meet a nymph with amazing eyes. But it never happened. There were also attempts to find out from his grandmother, but Elizabeth didn't know any of the young people. In the end, Mark decided that she wasn't from around here. And where to find her now? He thought confusedly. The guy persuaded himself to accept it, however. His soul desperately protested. Mark confidently drove his sports car and thought about the mysterious beauty. Maybe we should hire a private detective, he thought. I know her name is Selina, and she either comes to this village or lives here. Why? For a private detective, that's not a small thing. The idea cheered him up a bit, and he drove up to the village in a more upbeat mood. We'll get through this before leaving the house. Mark called his grandmother, and she said she had invited guests, probably some old ladies. Thought the boy. However, driving up to his grandmother's house, Mark realized not without pleasure that it was not so. At a table in the gazebo sat two very young girls, and one of them was the very beauty he had already despaired of finding. And when Mark approached them, he remembered the other girl, the one he had danced with at the New Year's Eve party in a random company. "Hello, lovely ladies," he said cheerfully. "Mark," Elizabeth exclaimed excitedly, hugging her grandson. "Well, come on, throw your bags and come to us." Dinner went merrily. Elizabeth asked if Mark could take Selina to town, to which he replied, "No problem. Are you also from the regional center?" "I study there." "And where, if not a secret?" "Not a secret," laughed Selina. "At the Institute of Food Industry." "Oh, seriously? Dreaming of a big academic career?" "Well, why do you want an academic career?" "I have other plans." "She wants to open her own restaurant," Jeannie said. "A restaurant is good," Mark nodded. "By the way, my parents have 2 restaurants." "You're a braggart," Elizabeth said fondly. "Jump into the cellar and get my specialty Naluka." "And your blood pressure?" thoughtfully asked the grandson. "So, do not argue. With my blood pressure, I'll somehow deal with myself, and I don't have good company every day. Here I sit now with you young people, and I am getting younger myself. Ah, those were the days. That's it. Go now." After the liquor, the old woman dried off and went to bed. Ginny remembered she had a date and said goodbye too. Selina wanted to go with her, but Mark said, "Don't go." The girl looked at her in amazement. From her eyes, Mark realized that she was about to object and hurriedly added, "Please." Selina obediently lowered herself onto the bench and after an awkward silence said, "I'll help clear the table." "Why? We're sitting so well. Maybe some more like here?" Mark suggested. The girl shrugged her shoulders and said, "Actually, I don't drink." "I believe you." "So, I don't drink. I just have a drink." Selina suddenly remembered how drunk on New Year's Eve, his friend, and grinned. A second later, she realized with horror that she was laughing out loud. "I'm sorry," she said to Mark, still laughing. But he just waved his hand, wiping away her tears. And so they continued to laugh. "You know," laughed the guy, "from the outside you'd think you and I had smoked some of that stuff." "Yeah," Selina nodded. "But what isn't," Mark said, finally getting over his laughter. "I don't need it. I'd like some of my grandmother's liqueur, though. How are you?" "Ah, come on." The young people chatted about everything and nothing, without noticing how they had drunk the liqueur. "It's getting late," Selina remarked, "and I have to study for the session tomorrow." "Are your parents strict at home?" Mark continued. "Not without that." She smiled and waved her hands playfully. "I'm still underage, after all." "Still underage?" "Yeah. I'll be 18 in August." "Well, you have to do it," Mark sighed. "Come on, I'll walk you out." They reached Selina's house, and the boy whispered, "You know, Selina and I also have a dream." "And what's that?" The girl was curious. "To kiss a nymph." Before Selina knew it, the guy was already kissing her passionately, awakening in her soul such feelings that she had never suspected before. "I hope that under this apple tree there is no older brother who will challenge me to a duel," smiled Mark. "No, my older brother is in the army," answered Selina, and at that moment her amazing eyes shone much brighter than diamonds. "Well, thank goodness. But there's a younger one," she said slyly. "There you are. He's already asleep." Mark pulled the girl to him again. She entered the house and sat down on the bed. After a minute, the happy smile was replaced by a pensive expression on her face. I wonder what he has now with that blonde, thought Selina, deciding that she'd better get this handsome guy out of her head. The girl went to bed. Near lunchtime, when Selina was studying chemistry, a dog barked furiously in the yard. Sarah looked out the window and, smiling slyly, said, "Isn't that for you?" "Who?" Selina asked, already knowing the answer to the question. "A handsome young man with flowers." The girl looked out the window and saw Mark. He was holding a bouquet of wildflowers. "What are you doing?" the mother asked mockingly. "Invite the gentleman into the house." "He's not." Selina didn't have time to finish. Mark was already standing in the doorway, and behind him stood his smiling father. Nikolai stuck his thumb up and winked at his daughter, which immediately made her blush. "I picked some flowers," Mark muttered. "In the grove." His wet slates and the edges of his Bermudas spoke more eloquently than any words could. Selina was touched. "I wish I hadn't been thinking about that girl." "I hope you like it," he smiled, handing her the flowers that smelled like the forest. "Thank you very much." "Very beautiful bouquet." Selina thanked him sincerely. "Well, invite your beau to the table," invited Sarah with a smile. "Mark and I agreed that he would take me to the dormitory," said the girl to her parents. "He probably needs to give money for gasoline?" Nikolai asked. "No, what are you? Nothing is needed," shook his head Mark. "Well, without tea and pancakes, we will not let you go," Sarah said resolutely. Mark picked up Selina in the afternoon. When the girl made an attempt to get into the back seat, he asked in surprise, "What are you doing?" "Get in the front." Selina shrugged and complied. For about 5 minutes they drove in silence. "Did I offend you in some way?" Mark asked. "Why would you say that?" "Well, just yesterday it seemed to me." "And what did it seem to you, I wonder?" Selina grinned mirthfully. "Well, we drank liqueur, well kissed. It's just everyday stuff." "Is that what you call it?" You could hear the resentment in the guy's voice. "That's weird." "What's weird?" "Well, you seem different to me. You seem too much," she remarked. Mark sighed. "Don't get them. Those girls. They're all the same, whether it's a young socialite from a wealthy family or an ordinary country girl." "Well, what do they all want?" "What?" "Well, the Walker heir is not used to giving up. Here's the thing, Selina," he said. "I don't know what I've done wrong, but I'm ready to make it right. I just wish I knew how to do it." "Do you ask your girlfriend these questions too?" "To be honest, I haven't had to," Mark replied, concentrating on the turn. As he rounded the bend, he added, "By the way, I don't have a girlfriend right now." "Why is that?" "Well, that's just the way it is. People break up sometimes." Mark broke up with Victoria 2 months ago. A month before the relationship broke up, it became clear to him that the girl had a drinking problem. He offered Victoria treatment, but she did not want to hear about it. And when the blonde beauty got drunk, he said that he, Mark, can heal her only with his love. Thus, Victoria hinted that she wanted to marry him. Well, no. One day Mark realized that he had had enough. The guy didn't beat around the bush and told Victoria they were breaking up. She started babbling something about saving her soul, but Mark was adamant. God knows, he tried to help her, but his desire alone was not enough. Then a succession of beautiful but faceless girls, relationships with whom were initially doomed to failure. None of them managed to push out of Mark's mind the dark-haired, green-eyed sorceress who was riding in the car with him and resenting for whatever reason. Yes, this was not how he saw the scenario of his relationship with the beautiful nymph named Selina. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you," she said. "You didn't. It's just that I thought—" "Again?" Selina asked and burst out laughing. Mark couldn't help it either. And then he pulled over to the side of the road, turned off the car, and they kissed for a long time. Young people could not get enough of each other. The next day, Selina passed her exam with an excellent, and Mark took her to a restaurant owned by their family. The waiter brought more and more dishes. Mark went to the musician, and after a whisper with him, returned to the musician, and after a whisper with him, returned to the table and said, "Shall we dance?" The girl nodded with a smile. After the session, Mark and Selina went to the village. Their romance flared up with renewed vigor. The beautiful nature and stupefying air, flavored with the aroma of flowers and cut grass, did their job. Their first night was unforgettable. The lovers went to the river, walked through the woods and fields, and it seemed to Mark that he had fallen into a fairy tale. He was sure a beautiful face against a background of gorgeous scenery can have nothing to do with reality. Elizabeth was delighted. Mark's parents also found their son's new girlfriend very nice. "That's what I mean," Amanda said approvingly. "She's both beautiful and smart." In their relationship with Selina, Mickey and Amanda noticed another undeniable advantage. Mark became more serious and learned to reason like a grown man, not a capricious boy. He began to devote more time to his studies. But Selina's parents are seriously worried about their daughter. "Are you sure this young man won't hurt you?" Sarah asked one day. "Mom, now I just feel good with him," the girl replied with a smile. "And what will happen next, let's not guess." The woman shook her head. She didn't recognize her sensible daughter. Although, what's so surprising? Where is love and where is prudence? Everyone falls in love, after all, so why was Selina any worse than the others? And yet Sarah's mind was troubled. Selina's a real beauty, but this Mark is a different kind of man. A major. Her daughter had assured her that Mark's grandmother and parents had accepted her well. Maybe they did. But they wouldn't be thrilled if the kids wanted to formalize their relationship. "Why am I getting so worked up?" thought Sarah. They're both committed to their studies, and who knows, maybe they'll break up as they often do when they're young. We'll see. The school year began, and Selina left for the city. A fancy sports car pulled up to the porch of the dormitory, and everyone nearby froze with curiosity. Mark walked around the car, opened the door, and when Selina stepped out of the car, the people began to murmur, "Wow, she's got it covered. No wonder with such a beauty. Oh, come on, she'll take her time and leave her. It's a bad hat. Don't be jealous, you won't get one." While the inhabitants of the dormitory self-consciously scratching their tongues, Mark took out of the trunk of a large sports bag and a bag, closed the trunk, and headed for the entrance. Selina walked next to him lightly. Everyone who knew her noted how she looked better. Selina enjoyed love, but did not forget about her studies. And in mid-September, the girl was forced to come down to earth. One day at a lecture, she felt nauseous. For about 5 minutes, she hoped that it would pass, but the nausea only intensified. The girl raised her hand, and after waiting for the assistant professor to pay attention to her, she asked permission to leave. "Barbara, I'm going to go to the dorm to lie down for a while," Selina told her classmate. "I don't feel well. It's probably my stomach." "Are you sure it's your stomach?" Barbara asked, looking at her carefully. "Well, Selina, are you completely nuts?" exclaimed the classmate. "What stomach? What test?" "What kind of test?" "The one that's most likely to show 2 stripes." Selina put her cold palms on her burning cheeks and mumbled, "Do you think?" "Yes, I'm sure of it. Go already, I'll warn you that you won't be there. Only with the test, do not delay." The girl gloomily wandered towards the dormitory, but remembered that there was a pharmacy across the street. So what to wait for? Selina bought the test and quickly went to the dormitory. Without delay, she took the test. 2 stripes. The girl sank down on a chair in exhaustion and wrapped her arms around her head. This was the downside of romance. What do you want to do now? No. Selina had no intention of getting rid of the child, but she didn't want to think how Mark would feel about it. After all, he had said many times that first study and work, and then family and children, and how, in fact, were her own plans for life different. That's just it, nothing. But there's already a child. So it looks like she'll have to wait a while to realize her dream. Mark, are you free today? Selina asked. Well, yes. After a short thought, he answered. You sound a little tense. Is something wrong? Something's wrong, she sighed. I'll pick you up at 5, okay? Yeah, that's fine. The girl could hardly wait for the evening. Mark, as promised, arrived at 5 sharp. He was a little pensive, which only made her more apprehensive. So what's wrong? Mark asked. Mark, I'm pregnant, Selina said without any preamble. What? You heard. Are you sure? The guy asked. I took a test and it showed 2 stripes, Selina replied, tears glistening in her eyes. What are you going to do? Mark, I'm not going to get rid of the baby, she said hastily, sensing something wrong. It's out of the question. Selina. Selina, what? The girl felt like she was about to become hysterical, but she mustered all her willpower. She couldn't afford to go along with her negative emotions. After all, Selina wasn't alone anymore. But you had so many plans, Mark said, choosing his words carefully, for he understood her state of mind. Would you just give up on them? Well, why should I? I'll just postpone them for a while. I'm not the first, I'm not the last. What are my years? Selina tried to speak calmly, but her voice was still hysterical. I see, he said quietly. I see you've made up your mind. I don't see any other solution, Selina said firmly. Mark, I'm not insisting on marriage. In fact, if it comes to that, I don't insist on anything. I can manage without you. Don't make a monster out of me, Mark grinned. I'll talk to my parents tonight. Selina, I'm sorry. I have to get ready for the seminar. I'll call you tomorrow. Okay, bye. Not happy, Selina concluded. What about me? Neither was I. But what's done is done. Mark was driving home, and a volcano was raging in his soul. What can be said? He had not expected this turn of events, although one had to assume that Selina, due to her inexperience, hadn't thought of the consequences. But that's Selina. He's the good one. Mark didn't even think of keeping the news from Mickey and Amanda. Selina would have to explain herself to her ancestors, and they would definitely tell her grandmother. Besides, Mark wasn't going to shirk his responsibility, though he wasn't happy about it, and neither was Selina. And yet she had decided to keep the child, which was predictable. Mark was tuning in for a difficult conversation with his parents, and his heart was scratching. Parents would probably be unhappy. So what now? The boy sighed heavily. He had grown cold towards Selina lately and was thinking of ending the relationship. This summer, against the backdrop of rural landscapes, she seemed nymph, forest sorceress, fairy from a fairy tale. In the city before him appeared, ordinary, albeit very beautiful. Rural, simple woman in old-fashioned clothes. The latter was especially depressing. The other day, Mark invited his beloved to a club. When he picked Selina up at the dormitory, she came out in a black dress, below the knees, in small white polka dots, and with a puffy bow on her chest. Over the dress was worn some grandmother's coat of unknown color. The image was completed by boots on solid soles. Well, how do you like me? The girl asked coquettishly, and Mark did not know whether to laugh or cry. Selina, he said, you are, of course, as beautiful as ever, but plans have changed. At that moment, Mark hated himself desperately, but he couldn't help it. After all, his friends would be laughing. Is it really true that you can take a girl out of a village, but you can never take a village out of a girl? Anyway, they didn't go to any nightclub that day, but just sat in a cafe. So Mark would have to become a recluse from now on. And all because his girlfriend doesn't know how to dress and doesn't seem to be trying to learn. Mark didn't even notice that he was near the house. I'm going to give up, he thought unhappily. You can't breathe before you die. Hello, he mumbled as he crossed the threshold of the house. Did something happen? Amanda asked, noticing the look on her son's face. Yeah, he replied succinctly. Is Daddy home? At home, she nodded warily. Good, nodded back at her son. I need to talk to you." "What was it you wanted to talk to us about?" Mickey asked when the family was all together. "Mom, Dad, I won't start at the beginning. Selena's pregnant." "Right," said the father. "What's next?" "What's next?" "That's what I'm asking. What's next?" "I hope you're ready to take responsibility for what happened." "I am," nodded Mark, doomed. "Good for you. You're going to work in one of the restaurants as an administrator, and you won't have to drop out of school, especially since this year you are defending, and then I'll take you on as a partner." "Why?" "Everything is not so bad," thought Mark. A couple of days later, the future parents filed a statement in the registry office, and at the weekend all together went to the village. When Sarah learned of her daughter's pregnancy, she was not on her face. "Come on, Sarah," Elizabeth exhorted her. "Everything will be all right. Mark won't hurt our little girl, and Mickey and Amanda have taken to her well." The bride's mother smiled faintly and sighed furtively. Everything seemed fine from the outside, but for some reason her mother's heart whimpered. "Dreams, dreams, where's your sweetness?" Selena recited aloud and added in a low voice, "The dreams are gone. What's left is the grossness." She flipped the frying chops and sat down on a chair to catch her breath. And so it was day in and day out. Laundry, cooking, kindergarten. It is only in the TV series Beautiful Wedding becomes a spectacular final chord. In life, it becomes the beginning. And what happens next is not always beautiful. When Mary was 2 years old, the young mother came out of sabbatical leave. She registered her daughter in kindergarten, and the next day she gathered in the dean's office. Having learned about this, Mark insisted that his wife transferred to the correspondence department. After thinking about it, Selena agreed. At first she was satisfied. The house was always hot food, perfect cleanliness, and the young mistress, having seen her husband off to work and her daughter off to kindergarten, had a good night's sleep. Selena finished driving courses and got her license. On the occasion of the successful completion of the course, Mark gave her a new, foreign small car, and now Selena herself picked up Maria from kindergarten. On the way home, she stopped at the supermarket. Such an algorithm of actions more than satisfied her. But over time, Selena came to the disappointing conclusion that a non-working woman, shortening her days at the stove, sooner or later turns into a domestic clutches. Once at one of the social events, she went out on the balcony for some fresh air and heard a conversation between two ladies. "Mark's wife is such a beautiful woman, but she dresses like a collective farmer," said the first. When Selena listened, she was unpleasantly surprised. The voice belonged to Julia, the wife of Nicolas, a friend of Mark's, and she'd welcomed this person as her own. "Where does she get this nightmare?" "From her grandmother's trunk. And she had gotten fat lately," answered a second female voice, unknown to her. "And she's still young. How can you not take care of yourself?" "What are you talking about?" Julia grinned. "I remember they invited us to the wedding anniversary. So Selena came out in some shabby dress and the whole evening talking about children's constipation and gas. How awful!" The ladies giggled disgustedly, and Selena almost burst into tears. God, what has her life become? It would seem that not so long ago, Selena was pretty and full of ambitious plans, and now what? Home, kindergarten, and mass events that she would never go to again. After making sure that the chops were ready, Selena went to change her clothes. Time to go to daycare to pick up Maria. She'll make the side dish later. "Mommy, do pigs drink?" the little girl asked as Selena put her in the child seat of her car. "Why do you think so?" the young woman asked in surprise. "You told Daddy that he got drunk as a pig again," Maria explained. Yes, it would be funny if it weren't so sad, Selena thought. Alas, it happened. And the answer was always the same. We were celebrating the deal. And when she, unable to stand it, once pointed out that it was not necessary to get drunk to the pig's squeal, she heard, "What do you know, village?" Well, now he's shown his true colors, Selena thought. Mama! She heard Maria's voice and, waking up from her unpleasant memories, realized that the girl was waiting for an answer from her. I wish I knew what to say to a 3-year-old child. No, Maria, pigs don't drink, Selina replied. It's just that when a person does a bad thing, they're called a pig. But Daddy and I talked, and he won't do it again. He won't, nodded her daughter cheerfully. On the way home, Selina called her husband. Mark, I fried some chops and I don't know what to make with them. Rice or potatoes? And there was a clear displeasure in her husband's voice. That's what I'm asking. What should I make as a side dish? You can cook whatever you want, Mark grumbled angrily and switched off. Wife? Angela asked, resting her head on Mark's shoulder. Wife? He nodded. What did she want? Did she want to know if I should have chops for dinner? Rice or potatoes? Really? Pretty much. What about you? What about me? What do you want your chops with? Angela mockingly asked. You know what, Angie? Screw the chops. I'm staying. Really? The mistress rejoiced. True, confirmed Mark, disconnecting the phone. Selina didn't sleep a wink all night. She called all the hospitals and morgues, but the fact that Mark had not been admitted, there was little consolation. What could have happened to him? Mommy, isn't Daddy taking me to daycare today? Maria asked when she saw her mother putting on her jacket. No, kitten. Daddy has a lot of work and he's gone to another city, Selina answered, trying hard not to cry. Mark showed up at 9 in the morning, when the wife had already returned home. Yes, but why isn't he at work? He took a vacation, Mark muttered. Is it hard when you're hungover? Selina asked in a mocking and sympathetic tone. That too, he was not embarrassed in the least, but he had an excuse. And what was the occasion? Mark nodded approvingly. And the reason is that I'm leaving you. She'd been waiting for that. No, really. Then what's that unpleasant chill in your stomach? Why don't you ask me why? Well, what's the reason? Selina asked apathetically. The wild desire for sleep had done its job. It would hurt her later. And the reason is that I'm sick of you. You're a village. That's what you are. It's a shame to appear in decent society with you. Half-drunk Mark raged. Once I fell in love with a beautiful girl, and now what? A peasant girl. Mark went to the closet and took out a suitcase. So some of the things I'll take now, and the rest I'll pick up later, he muttered, stacking shirts, jackets, and pullovers. Selina watched her husband and couldn't believe this was happening to them. It had all started so beautifully, hadn't it? Mark, she squeezed out of herself. But if you didn't like something, you could have talked to him in a human way. Why did you have to bring it to this? I was up all night worrying. I thought something had happened to you. He had nothing to say. He knew Selina was right. Mark went to the kitchen and, taking a carafe of water from the refrigerator, began to drink greedily straight from the neck. God knows he didn't want to. But should Maria and I vacate the apartment? Selina appeared in the kitchen and asked. No, Mark shrugged. As you know, this apartment was left to me by my grandmother. I'm sure she won't mind if you stay here. I'll manage somehow. He suddenly felt ashamed of everything he'd said to his wife. And indeed, everything could have been solved in a civilized way, instead of descending to insults. In fact, I'm sorry for what I just said to you, Mark said. You're right, that's no way to handle serious issues. Apology accepted. Selina nodded. While her husband packed her things, she sat in the chair covering her eyes. The young woman didn't realize how much time had passed before the door slammed deafeningly, making her shudder. Selina went into the bedroom and, collapsing on the bed, immediately fell asleep. Well, I'm not going to bury myself alive, Ginny said firmly. Well, what are your years? No, friend, I'll take care of you now. Waking up, Selina suddenly felt the urge to cry on someone's shoulder. Thankfully, she had one. Do you want me to come over? My friend suggested it. You're working. Tomorrow's Saturday. Oh, that's right, Selina realized. It's a dangerous symptom, by the way. If a person loses track of the days of the week, it's a sure sign that they've been sitting at home. No, I have to transfer to a full-time program. When are you coming? Even today. That'd be great. It was only now that Selina realized how much she missed her friend. I'll take the next bus out. Ginny shrugged her shoulders as they tucked Maria in, drank wine, and ate a good piece of delicious knuckle steak. Negative experiences are also experiences. Yes, today, divorce for many women is, on the contrary, the beginning of a new life. That's what someone who's never been divorced says, Selina said dejectedly. Oh, Selina, what's with the downbeat attitude? Look on the bright side. Now you won't have to work at the stove on another culinary masterpiece for someone who, by the way, didn't appreciate it. You'll start showing up in public, you'll blossom, and you'll see that asshole will be kicking himself for missing out on a woman like you. Yeah, I can't stop thinking about what he said to me. I mean, what Mark said was terrible, but maybe there's some truth to what he said. I mean, you're a million times prettier than those society cats, and you dress like a Soviet-era librarian. Is it really that bad? Selina asked sadly. Ginny exclaimed, feeling that the ice was finally breaking. What should we do? She asked. For starters, go to the hairdresser, she said flatly. If your socialite girlfriends, instead of scratching their tongues, did not bother to advise you a good stylist, I'll take the role of your good fairy. In the morning, Selina was awakened by her friend's voice. Wake up, sleepyhead. We have great things to do. Mum, can I take another hour nap? Okay, you have 5 minutes. Selina, I'm blown away, Ginny exclaimed in amazement. Mom, Maria said importantly. I see it now. This is what a young, beautiful woman should look like. The stylish haircut on her long hair really transformed Selina. Thick, dark bangs highlighted her turquoise eyes, and cut side strands beautifully framed her face, making it more elegant and interesting. While the hairdresser was working on Selina's hair, Ginny looked for a spa salon, but everywhere was busy. There was a problem with the treatments. But that's okay, she said cheerfully. We'll set up a spa at home. And now for shopping. After the procedures, the friends sat down to drink tea. Well, now you are ready to start a career as a businesswoman, said Ginny. What are you talking about? Well, what do you mean? She snorted. Your dream, the restaurant. When was that? Selina grinned sadly. By the way, you promised me the manager's job, Ginny said reproachfully. And now what? Promise me a job and walk away. No, my friend. That's not going to work. What restaurant? With what money? Nothing. I have an idea. It's a small investment, and if it works out, you could make a lot of money. Selina was intrigued. And Ginny's proposal was really worth considering. Her friend suggested starting a catering company. In other words, catering. To begin with, you can offer your cooking in the offices. Ginny outlined the plan. Little by little, we'll rent a place. You cook, I'll find clients. You cook, I'll find clients. Eventually, we'll have a restaurant. What do you say? What do you think? I like it. Shall we make a deal? Deal. The phrase life begins after divorce no longer seemed to Selina a frivolous judgment of those who had never been divorced. She transferred to the full-time department and now wondered how she could manage to study, cook lunches for the office staff, and deal with the child. At the Institute, Selina has a lot of fans, but she was not ready for a new relationship. After the May holidays, Mark and Selina put the stamps on the dissolution of marriage. I'm sorry if something is wrong, said the ex-spouse, and be happy. By the way, you look beautiful. Thank you, smiled Selina. You be happy too. Tell Maria that I love her very much. I will. This divorce made Mickey and Amanda very sad. They said he couldn't find a better wife than Selina. So it's not fate, said the now ex-sister-in-law, with a sad smile. But know that the door of my apartment is always open to you. Yes, I know, Selina. Amanda replied through her tears. And you and Maria should come and visit us more often. Business was booming. The business lunches prepared by Selina were a big hit, and soon they rented a small premises, bought some equipment, and hired 3 assistants. After the summer session, Selina decided to go to the countryside. In the summer, there is a paradise. She managed the work process via Skype and noted with satisfaction that everything was going smoothly. Selina was returning from the store. When she saw Frank, her alcoholic neighbor, on the bench, the young woman thought, well, now he'll start begging for a bottle. Hello, beautiful. He said hello with a smile, showing the remaining 10 teeth. Hello, Uncle Frank. I hear you're a businesswoman. Well, I'm a bit of a businesswoman, but we can do some things, Celine said cheerfully. Celine, I'd like to heal, said the neighbor and hastily added, but don't worry, I'll pay you back. Okay. She smiled and handed Fedka a $100 bill. Here, thank you. He cheered up and, shoving the money into the pocket of his crumpled shorts, ran towards the store. When Selina entered the house, she saw Elizabeth. The older woman's eyes were red and swollen with tears. Her parents were crying as well. What happened? She asked, feeling that something very terrible had happened. Trouble, Selina, Elizabeth moaned. Selina gasped. How did it happen? She asked in horror. They crashed on an airplane. They were returning from a business trip, the old woman replied and sobbed. The deaths of the Walker businessmen had shocked the town. Mickey and Amanda had done a lot of charity work, and there were many poor people among those who came to see them off. On the way to the church, Selina bought a huge bouquet of roses. When she saw Mark, she approached him. Accept my condolences, Selina said. Thank you, nodded her ex-husband. They loved you very much. I know, smiled sadly at the young woman, and tears came to her eyes. And I loved them very much too. God, I just can't believe it. Grandma's in the hospital, he said quietly. Yeah, I know. Mom called an ambulance. I hope I hope she pulls through this. I hope so too, Mark sighed. The Walker couple bequeathed all their real and personal property, business and other assets in equal shares to their son and granddaughter. In case they died before Maria's majority, they gave Selina the right to manage their daughter's estate until she turned 18. As they felt, Selina thought bitterly at the reading of the will. A week later, she received a call from Mark saying that he had won a lucrative contract and was flying to Europe. For how long? She asked. 5 years. Wow! Well, maybe you really need a change of scenery now, Selina replied, and thought, and most importantly, I won't have to lie to Marie that Dad is away on business. The next 5 years flew by lightning fast. Having defended her diploma, Selina began to work with redoubled vigor. Before she knew it, the young woman had cut the red ribbon at the entrance to the Dream restaurant, as she called her brainchild. Elizabeth looked fondly at Selina and remembered how her son and daughter-in-law opened their first restaurant. She managed to recover from their deaths, but the wound was still bleeding now. Selina often flew to different countries and took master classes from chefs. She was tired, but it was worth the gamble. In addition, Jeannie turned out to be a savvy manager. When the wound from the loss of his parents healed, Mark realized how much he missed the United States. He decided not to tell anyone about his return to his homeland. As soon as he set foot on his native land, Mark wept. You're getting old, brother, he mentally said to himself, and headed to the airport building for a coffee. Mark's attention was caught by a gorgeous woman in a fox coat and pillbox hat. The stranger's lips were brightly painted. The woman's face was vaguely familiar to him, but Mark couldn't who she was. Probably some actress or model, he thought. Most likely a foreigner. And then he saw his daughter. The girl was running toward the gorgeous stranger, screaming, Mommy, I missed you so much. Behind her was a woman, obviously Maria's nanny. Mark's jaw dropped. Sure, Selina had gotten prettier since the divorce. But like this, so much for the countryside. What an idiot I've been. Still not realizing why he was doing this, Mark walked over to his wife and daughter. "I missed you too," he said with a smile. "Ma? Daddy, did you know Mom was coming?" exclaimed the daughter enthusiastically. Mark, are you back?" Selina asked. "Yes, I'm back." "Selina, maybe this isn't the time or place, but I want to tell you. Anyway, I've been thinking a lot and I've decided, shit, let's start over. I've been a fool, but I promise I'll make it up to you." "You can't fix a broken vase," Selina said thoughtfully, tears streaming down her eye. "But we'll try. Selina, we were young and bad then, but we're older now." Selina really wanted to believe that this time everything would be fine. She also realized that she had loved Mark all these years. "Yes," she answered quietly and smiled. They rode in the cab. Mark and Selina gazed wistfully at the stars and thought about the same thing. It seemed to them that Mickey and Amanda were watching them and enjoying themselves.